Hello and welcome to the Product Biz Podcast. We are at episode number 77 and my name is Monica Little. I'm your host. And today we're talking about making a profit in your business, how to get your products in front of more people. We have a really great special guest. Her name is Melissa Robbins and she's sharing so many tactical insights. And if you pay attention to this episode, you're going to walk away with so many great to-dos, so many great ways to up-level what you're working on, so many great ways just to look at your business differently. And really what we're talking about here and what she says are the two most important parts of running a small business, which include your profit and your ability to get in front of as many people as possible. Your profit comes down to making sure you're making money with every single sale that you make, from selling online to selling wholesale. And your profit comes down to the decisions of where you invest your money. Are you investing in the right components to help you stand out and to help you grow? Or are you overspending in certain areas that are known for draining cash out of a business? This foundation, paired with getting in front of as many people as possible through your website, the marketplaces you sell on, the wholesale opportunities you create for your business, are the key to success. And today's special guest, Melissa Robbins, shares with you how to make sure you're making a profit in your business and how to get your products in front of more people, especially with some really awesome tips for getting into more stores that you can take and use right away. A little bit about Melissa. She is a color-loving, truth-telling business coach, passionate about retail, fashion, and design. She's a former lecturer of fashion business with 25 years in retail and wholesale. She has done it all. She's built 2 multi-million-dollar product businesses that she's sold. She's owned a retail store, has been a buyer for big brands. She's been a seller. She's exhibited at over 50 trade shows, worked with hundreds of brands to help them grow to over $1 million in sales. She is very, very insightful in the details that she shares with us today. And I'm just so grateful and honored to have her as a guest to share these details with you. So let's bring her on so you can learn from Miss Melissa Robbins. Well, welcome, Melissa, to the Product Biz Podcast. I'm so excited to have you as a guest here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Monica.
Yeah, I'm super excited to learn more about you and hear more about your expertise. I know you have an incredible resume of product businesses that you've started, people that you've worked with, how you've helped them. So I'm excited to ask you some questions and just learn from you. So before we dive in, I would love for you just to introduce yourself and tell us more about your background and what got you to where you are here today.
Absolutely. So I think nearly my whole life I've been working in retail and wholesale and product businesses. So it started very young. My parents had a retail store when I was, very young. So that was always been surrounded by business. And so I started a brand with my sister many, many years ago. And when she first had her first child, and we grew that product business for a number of years and had a retail store. And so I've always just been surrounded by it. And just love working with products, love having that energy of, when people first have their product, the first time they lay eyes on their product is amazing. So anyway, So I've worked with product businesses now. So I've always been surrounded by it. And now since I sold my retail business and brand, have worked with hundreds of other brands to help them and support them in their journey. Because as you know, there's so many creatives out there who have amazing ideas and amazing products, but sometimes they don't know the business side of things. So that's what I love helping with and what is my, gets me excited.
Yeah. So tell me more. I know you said when we were just chatting and I saw when you sent over your bio, so I know from you that you've actually grown 2 product businesses to multiple millions of dollars, which is super incredible. So I want to ask you 2 questions. Like, number one, I totally agree with you. And I noticed this too, that a lot of people love the creative side and they love to make new products and they kind of struggle with the business side. So where did that business side come in for you? Did you go to school for business or was it from growing up around business? And then also tell us more about what your product businesses were that you grew and then sold.
Absolutely. So, yes, I think being surrounded by business is definitely one factor because, always been in that entrepreneurial sort of family and always have those lessons being, taught along the way and the ups and downs that come along with it as well. Definitely saw those things take place in my family and stuff. And then when I had my own retail store, I was a teacher as well. So I was a former high school teacher, science and maths teacher, so not related, but I went back and actually taught fashion business as well while I while I was working in my retail store. So because I had that fashion background and I had the teaching background, I sort of combined those two. So I taught, I lectured to, 18 to 25-year-olds essentially how to help them start their own business. And so it's sort of after I sort of started applying lots more of that sort of into my own business as well. Like it's things that I obviously knew, but I hadn't maybe done it as much in this particular business. That just really started to help me grow that business even more. So it just got me even more excited about continually learning and continually, finding out the best ways to do things and always looking at where you can make improvements and really, really diving down deep into like the profit margins and stuff like that. Like the things I teach now are things like, I wish I'd focused more on that, or I wish I'd done that more. So it's this sort of knowledge that's come up. And also, as you said, like having that experience in lots of different types of businesses, I can see now also what works, what doesn't work, and what other people have tried and what may be good for other people to, experience as well. So that's that background of, the business side of it, where it's come from. And I've, done a lot of study since then in terms of just, self-paced learning, and really I do so many different courses and so many different programs to help me as well now. Yeah. And just I guess the other thing you asked was about what the product businesses were. So it's always been in fashion. And my sister and I had a children's wear brand where we had it for 15 years, and it was, when was it? Early 2000s that we first started, and so 20 years ago now. But, obviously things were a little bit different then. But we had one of the first websites that we'd sold, in Australia where we are, that sold children's clothing online, which is very unusual at the time. We've worked with influencers back in the day in terms of, celebrity children and stuff like that, got our products onto those sort of things. We didn't even realize, obviously, at the time it was, called influencers, and what it was. And then, just really diversified our market, I guess, as well. So we had a retail store, but we also sold wholesale. We sold in Australia, but we also sold in the US and, in Asia and in other countries as well. So really expanded our reach into many different sales channels, many different markets, and as well as having our own retail space too. So, and then I ended up selling it to my staff 8 years ago now. So it was amazing. It was a great journey.
Well, I love hearing about just your background of how you grew your business and how you continue to learn, because I think that's such an important part for being a business owner, is that appetite to just continue to learn. And how you said you were always developing and doing courses and learning new things and implementing them. So I love hearing that, because I think that's like a critical component of running a business, is you have to have that drive and desire just to want to learn and become better and to continue to grow. So I love hearing that from you, and love hearing how you had so much success with your children's fashion boutique. Like that is absolutely incredible. Selling in wholesale, retail, online, influencers, like that is just so inspiring to hear. Now, one thing that you said is that now you teach people on some things that you wish you would have done before, that you wish you would have done sooner. So tell me a little bit more on what you really focus on, what you believe in, what you share with others, that you learned from your own business journey that you're just a big fan of nowadays.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I think I mentioned it previously, but one of the big things is I really like to now make sure when I start working with a business that they've got the right foundations. So they've got the right pricing set up, they've got the right margins in their business, and they're allowing for selling in different channels. So not everyone wants to wholesale, or not everyone wants to, just sell online, but I think you've got to allow for the right margin in your product. So, because what I hear so often is people say, I just want to make it affordable for people, or I just want to make it accessible for people. And I say to them, like, that's great. That's really, that's great that you value that. However, you still have to make money by doing this. Otherwise, it's just a hobby, right? You've got to actually make sure that you're making a profit to allow you to continue, to allow you to market to more people, to allow you to find more, get more customers in front of more customers. So the big thing I always focus on first is that pricing and the foundations, making sure that you've considered everything, because again, it's something people sometimes just guess or make up. They just are not quite sure if they're picking the right price at all. And so that's definitely a foundation, piece that I start, like my program that I run, that's the first start, because I'm always like, let's get this sorted first, because otherwise there's no point trying to sell more if you're not actually making a profit. Big thing there. And then, in line with that as well, and maybe it's that maths teacher thing from years ago, but understanding your profit and loss, and not just looking at that at the end of the financial year, but understanding the numbers and the percentages of what you spend money on is really important along the way, because sometimes people think they're spending, too much money, or they don't have enough profit, and they're like, well, it's just all gone. Where has it gone? So knowing where that's going, understanding where you're spending money and where the best place to spend money is as well, because as you know, you need to spend money to run a business. You can't just, make a product and hope that people find it. You have to market it. You have to sell it. So it is really important to have margin in your product, so therefore you can, go and find your customers by marketing your business as well.
Yeah. And when you say, I love what you said, knowing where the money is going. So did you, or have you noticed any trends on when people are kind of stuck maybe with their financials, where that money is actually going? And then you said the best place to spend it. So maybe tell me both sides of it. Where do you see people getting stuck? They're spending a lot of money on this. Maybe they don't need that, or it's too soon, or it's just too much going there. And then also, what is the best place when people are maybe newer in their business to actually be focusing on reinvesting their money?
Okay, so often, the whole issue with cash flow with product businesses, obviously you've got to invest in your product. So that is a hard thing to figure out and manage. So sometimes that is the case where you've got a lot of money held up in product because you're just maybe not managing where it's going or how you're moving through the product properly, in terms of, you might have 6 months worth of stock when you really only need 3 months worth of stock. So often people spend too much money in product and don't manage that flow of product in and out as well as what they probably could or should. And then I guess that's a little bit different between if you're a retail store and a brand, because retail stores need a lot of product. So that is always a hard balance to achieve. But that is definitely one thing. And then often people might spend too much money on, maybe their branding or maybe their website, and, hold themselves up with that too much. Whereas, but I always say when you're first starting out, the best place to invest money is definitely your photography, your website. You want to spend a bit of money on, but it doesn't need to be $10,000. Like, it might be that you start a Shopify store for, $29 a month. It doesn't have to be, and there's so much accessible that you can do for free or have a free theme that you don't need to spend a lot of money on things like that. I've told the story before. When we first started our brand, we spent $30,000 on a website because it was all flash and it was all this, stuff that needed. We had a grant for it to get it done, to get online. At that was back 20 years ago. But that's how much it cost to do a website back then. Like, it was huge. Whereas now you can get started for a small amount of money, or you can get on Etsy and you can get on your product on other places. You don't have to spend a lot of money on that setup stage. But I would definitely invest in good photography, because that's going to sell your product when you're not there, or if you're not physically selling at a market, the products are going to help you sell the product. Sorry, the photos are going to help you sell the product. So definitely that's a good place to invest. And then also probably in yourself to improve your knowledge and skills, because those are things that once you invest in that, you don't lose that. Like, you haven't. Everything I've learned over the 25 years of being in this business, it's just an accumulation. It's not that you learn it once, you pay for it once, and then you don't use it again. You get that knowledge that you can gain. It's only going to help you with whatever you do after this business or the next, or
Yeah, I think that is such a beautiful reflection of the best places to spend money. What you said is photography and website. So it'll sell for you when you're physically not there, right? So your photos
Mm-hmm.
do the selling for you. So the website does the selling for you. But I love what you said of investing in yourself and the knowledge and the skills. Like that is such a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to say, because I totally 100% agree that that is so important. And that's been a big part of me throughout my entire business career too, is always investing in myself. Like we were just talking about the importance of that, because as you grow, you're only going to continue to take another step on that ladder, and then another, and then another, and another. And it's just going to compound and keep growing. So I love hearing that from you too. Now, when you said where people spend most of their money on maybe having 6 months of products when they only need 3, tell me your train of thought here with the number of SKUs that people have. Because one thing that I really talk with my members is, especially if you're like maybe starting off or in the business for 1 or 2 years, a lot of people, what they do is they want to come out with 20, 25, 30 different SKUs. So now all of their money is going to 20, 25, 30 different products. And now all their cash flow is there. And now they don't have money to invest in photography or to invest in other things because it's all these products. So I'm a big believer of really hone in on your bestsellers or what you want your bestsellers to be, and like go all in on those. But I would love to hear your feedback. Do you see people getting in that trap, or how do you talk to people who are maybe in that type of situation right now?
Yeah, people definitely do have that tendency to always want, because, they're creative. They want to create new products. Like that's part of the, the fun and the designing and coming up with the new ideas. But I definitely see that people continue to add, but they don't drop off. So I think every product needs to be it might be somewhere in your cycle in terms of it might be new, you might be testing it out, but then you've got to move everything through, and some things need to drop off. And then whether that's, you do a clearance on those products to get rid of them, but it's really hard for designers and brands to go, oh, I don't want to let go of that baby because it was, created and it was beautiful when it first started. But really knowing your numbers about, as you say, like what are your best sellers, reviewing your data and checking, where things are selling. Like you might sell different things online on direct to consumer than you sell wholesale. So knowing which ones work, because sometimes you've got quite different bestsellers in those different categories as well. So knowing what your numbers are and always reviewing if you definitely need to drop off some, and what's it called when the line's finished essentially, so that the product line is finished. And then then as you say, knowing what your best sellers are and really focusing on those. And it's a bit hard to say a number because you might have a fashion brand that's got 50 different SKUs or more, or you might have a creative small earring brand who has 30, but maybe they can be narrowed down as well. And as well on that, just saying that, like you want to, the money you invest in your photography and your website and uploading it and your lifestyle shots or your user generated content, you want to be able to use that and maximize that. So you don't want to have new all the time, because then then that's sort of wasted the photos that you've had of that, or the time you've invested in that, getting that online and getting the right product description and all that sort of stuff. So it's hard, I guess. Depends if you're a fashion or if you're a cyclical, sort of product. But not often I say to people, like, though that range that you've got, if you're getting new customers see it, they haven't seen all this before. So you don't need to have new all the time. But, saying that, I did a podcast with one of my guests a few weeks ago, and she brings out 80 to 100 new products every season. So
Wow.
she's in a different level because she has over 1,000 stockists. So she needs to sort of have new all the time. But yeah, I think when you're starting out, understand your numbers, know which products are your best sellers, and focus on those and then drop off the ones that aren't working so that you can bring in new products all the time, as opposed to just building that range. It shouldn't always just increase. It should be others drop off.
Yeah. And one thing that you said, which I think is really important, is narrowing the focus. And I love how you mentioned that the more new products you come out with, the more new photos that you need, the more time that you have to spend on your website adding these new products. And what I see so often, and totally agree with you, that depending on the category that you're in, it can totally vary. So fashion, I mean, that's seasonal. You need things in the spring and in the summer and the fall and winter that are different. You're not going to be selling bathing suits, for example, year round, right? So obviously there's some where there's definitely some difference there. But what I see so much is people get caught up in just creating, coming out with new products. And then they look back and they're like, why haven't I made any progress? Well, what about these marketing channels? Are you getting on them? Are you pitching your products? Are you connecting with your audience? And that really takes us to the next question that I want to ask you, because I know you mentioned you help people with pricing, margins, making sure like their profit and loss, understanding that, looking at the numbers. But then you also mentioned that you help people with getting on multiple different sales channels. So talk me through, what are those sales channels that you recommend people to be on to sell their products, to make more money, to get in front of more people, and to keep growing their business?
Absolutely. So I mean, direct to consumer is the easy one to get started because you're on your own website, you're in control of everything. So I think everyone should have that as a presence and as a, first point of call, because it is easy to sort of get going, I would say. But then diversifying so that, because it's really expensive to get customers on your own website, and it's really hard to acquire those customers, and you've got to spend a lot on marketing. So you don't want that to be your only sales channel. Things like other marketplaces. So, Etsy, I know that you specialize in. Something like that. And because I say to people, they're like, does that affect my brand? Is that going to impact my sales? And I'm like, no, that's going to only, they've got their own audience. You've got a whole new marketplace that you're getting in front of. So you should be on as many of those types of things as you can, because they're all new audiences, all new eyes that can get on your product. And what you're paying the fees for is that you're paying for the audience. So it's definitely well worth it, because for you to pay to get your own customers on your website, that's expensive anyway. So you're going to be paying somewhere. So, and then wholesale is the other one, which I really love diving into and I really specialize in, because it's often people will say to me, but, these, let's say an earrings are $50 but I can only sell them to the retail store for $25, and then I only make $12 and they make $25. And it's like, but it's not about that individual customer price. It's how long you have that customer for and the reach that they can give you. So you might have a customer when you pick up wholesale and have them for, 2 to 10 to 15 years as a customer, and they're going to generate for you. They might be a $100,000 customer over that lifetime. So that customer is worth a lot more, and it doesn't take as much money to acquire them. They can just keep reordering from you again and again and again. So you can't look at it as that individual price that you're getting for individual units, because it's about the big picture, and it's about all those people you're going to get in front of. Because let's say there's they're a store in Arizona, for example, you are never going to, as say I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, as a brand in Australia, I'm never going to reach the customers who are going into those stores in Arizona. Like, you can just reach so many more people that if you wholesale than you could by yourself. So it is about that long lifespan of your customer and how many people you can get in front of. And again, the cost you pay to, the cost that you pay is just a different one compared to direct to consumer, compared to marketplace. It's just a slightly different rate, but it's well worth in what you can get in front of.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's interesting too, when you talk about how it's expensive to get people on your website, some people may be like, well, I don't pay for Facebook ads or Instagram ads, so it's not expensive for me, but it's expensive in your time. If you are on Instagram organically posting, organically engaging, organically showing up on your stories, and you're trying to get those people to your website, you may be not spending any actual dollars in terms of a charge on your credit card, but that time, if you're doing it yourself, or that time if you're paying a social media manager, which usually if you're paying a social media manager, they're pretty expensive if they're like good at what they do, right?
Yeah,
so
they are.
I think that's something like so important to mention, because a lot of people only focus on a website. But what you said of marketplaces and wholesale, and cool, if the marketplace is going to take 10%, fine, they're bringing the customer to you. If the wholesaler is going to buy at 50% off, cool, they're getting you in front of more customers. So I think part of it too comes down to people just valuing their time and knowing that the time that you spend on Instagram and your website, like getting people to your website, that time is money too. So that's when it starts to really add up and become expensive, like you said, right?
It is. And that's, again, why you need a good margin at the start, because you have to pay it somewhere along the line, whether, as you say, your time or money. So making sure that you've got enough to cover yourself and actually make it a profitable business. That's what you want.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the next question that I want to ask you, because you mentioned wholesale and how that's something that you really specialize in. So do you have any tips that you want to share on what is your strategy for people who are trying to get into more stores, boutiques, retail shops around the country or around the world? What do you recommend people to do who are in that boat right now, trying to explore that avenue?
One of my big things is having a physical catalog. So many people just send an email and they send one or two emails and they don't hear a response and then they just give up. So one is having a really good catalog, a digital or lookbook or catalog. I mean, they're sort of interchangeable, the term, but essentially giving everyone the information, the buyer, so that they can clearly see what your product is and how much it costs and whether it's right for them or not. And within that, it's got to have good visual imagery as well, because as we said, that's what's selling the product when you aren't speaking to someone. So definitely having a good catalogue, and I believe a physical catalogue is important because it's going to stand out compared to an email. So sending something physically in the mail, and it might be that you send some customers' physical catalogue, and some customers you might even send a sample, depends on what your product is and if that's a possibility. So the lumpy package is the term where that's going to stand out way more if they get a package in the mail that's lumpy and they're like, this isn't a bill, this isn't this is something positive as opposed to negative, and then compared to an email, that's going to get you noticed more. So sending something physical, as I said, catalogue and or a sample, depends on who the customer is. And it's a numbers game too, because same way that your website conversion might be, 1 to 3% on your website, the same thing with wholesale. You can't send out 100 catalogues and expect to get 100 new customers from it. It's a numbers game. You've got to send out more and more and constantly be trying to find new customers and constantly be sending out physical catalogues and or emails, because it's a numbers game. You're never going to convert 100 people as a customer. So you've got to keep pushing and keep sending out to more people, and you've got to be persistent. So you can't give up after one approach or two approaches. Sometimes it takes 10 emails to get through to someone. And it's not because the buyers will probably hate me saying this because they're like, oh, I don't get so many emails, I don't want any more. But sometimes I know I, as a buyer, and this is where I've been on both sides of it. I've been a buyer for retail as well as trying to sell my brand. I was just busy. You get so many emails. You've got so much going on. So you just might not see that email the first time. And then the second time you might see it and think, oh, yeah, that's good. But then you get distracted and you don't do anything about it. The third email, you might be like, oh, actually, yeah, I do like that. That might work for me. The fourth email, you're like, okay, yeah, actually, I should find out more about this brand or whatever. So you can't give up. You've got to be persistent, and you've got to, I think, try to stand out with a physical approach as well. If you're looking for a physical bricks and mortar store.
Yeah, the physical catalog approach, that's something totally new to me. And I think that is spot on. There's one of my members, she actually sells stickers. And that's one thing I told her. I'm like, since your stickers, shipping is more economical than like a big bulky package. So if you have a store that you really want to get into, have a beautiful postcard, write them a note and ship them some of your stickers so they actually see it. But I love what you said of creating the physical catalog, sending a sample, because that totally will make you stand out. And it's so funny. I think back to like 10 years ago or so, when I was in college, I was asking one of my friends who was great at getting internships for the summer. I'm like, what do you do to get internships? And he goes, I print my resume on thicker paper and it stands out compared to everyone else who prints their resume on thin paper. So it's so funny that you said a physical catalog, because it's just these like small things that, well, this is actually, I think, like an awesome up level that makes you stand out. But I think that is absolutely genius and shows you're serious and shows that you truly value the partnership and you value their business and that you're spending money to send them that. So I think that is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I do want to ask you one thing on the email side. And I love what you said of like, yeah, it's a numbers game. 100% agree with that. Be persistent. Beautiful. Love that. Now, what do you recommend people to have in that first email that they're pitching? Like, what should that email say? Is it about the brand themselves? Is it about why their products are a good fit for this store? What are some key things that people should have if they are doing that email approach?
That email is really important, that first one. And I think it definitely should be about the store and what you can bring to the store and how your product is different. I don't want to hear your story of how you started art in college and then you've, created this art for the last 10 years. Like, I want you to, I think you need what I say in my programs, like I have a template where it's, like 6 different points essentially. So you want a little bit about you, but maybe 1 to 2 sentences max. You want to have how your product is different and how that's going to stand out in their store and how it's relevant to their store. You see a lot, and as a buyer, they would see it a lot as well. Like, I think your store is really aligned to my brand. Like, that sort of comment, I think, is just so saturated that I wouldn't put something like that in. I would talk about how your product, has a unique selling point compared to someone else, maybe. And definitely I would put your prices in there. So when I was a buyer, if someone had said to me, my prices range from $19 to $49, and this is my recommended retail price or the market selling price, then that's really important, because then I could make an immediate decision on whether it was right for me or not right for my target market. So you're trying to give everything in this first email so they can make a decision if they want to. So you're definitely going to talk about a little bit about you, a little bit about how you can, you're a unique selling point for their store. You're going to give them prices, and you're going to give your minimum order quantity, like what's your minimum order, and then let them know what you've attached or included. So whether I would recommend you, again, put in your catalog, your digital catalog, and you also attach your order form so that, as I said, if they want to make a decision and buy, they can. They don't have to come back to you with an email and say, oh, I want to find out more, send me your catalog. Or I want to find out more, what are your prices? Because they're just not going to do that. They're just busy. They're like, it's either right or it's not. So give them the information in that first to enable them, if they want to make a decision to buy, they could. They could literally place an order with the first email. Another thing, embed your imagery into the email. So whether it's in your signature or whether it's just a couple of small photos within the email to showcase your product. Because, again, sometimes the attachments don't work, or you don't want a big file to send. So a small image either within your signature or within the email to showcase your product. So, again, they can make that decision straight away.
Yeah, that tip that you said at the end about the photos, that's something that I tell my members too, because that just helps. If someone's getting a ton of emails of text and all this text and all this text, if you have an image of your product, they can just see that and be like, oh yeah, that'd be perfect in my store. Oh, I know exactly where that would go, or my customers would love this. So it's good to hear. Good to hear your feedback.
Even on that, that's an interesting one too, because I had a brand that before they started, they went to a friend's retail store and they took photos of their product on a shelf in a retail store. And so they used that photo to send out when they first started too, because it really just showed what it looked like in the retail store and how it could look on a shelf as well. And because their packaging was amazing, like that had a huge impact, because people could see, oh, that looks really great stacked up like that, and, the product en masse. So that was a great idea to get retailers over the line to imagine it in their store almost.
Yeah, that's great feedback, because when we think about imagery for direct to consumers, we want to have images that have them thinking of how they're going to use the product. If you have a candle, you want to have the candle on a nightstand with a book next to it with the candle actually lit, so the consumer, the customer can actually start to envision, oh yeah, I want that relaxing night. So I love that tip of, let's do the same thing for the retailer, a photo of it on a shelf so they can right away envision what it looks like and start to picture where it's going to go. That is a great tip. Absolutely phenomenal. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. This has been such a great conversation and so many great details and tips. And I know the person listening, I'm going to tell them right now to listen to this a second time so they can hear what you said, because I was taking notes, and just hearing how you explain things, it's super refreshing, and just getting your perspective has been so valuable. So thank you so much for spending the time here. Last question I have for you is just, where can people find you? Where can they learn from you? Where can they learn more about potentially working with you as well?
Absolutely. So my Instagram is thelotco, so THELOTCO, and my website is thelotco.com.au, because I'm based in Australia. And my my name, Mel Robbins, does get mixed up with the other Mel Robbins. So sometimes it gets confusing, but you can find me by searching Mel Robbins Product-Based Business Coach, and I'll be able to help you out. And I've got lots of different ways to work with me in terms of it might be a small, email marketing program to get going and understand how to use email for your customers, or, a full roadmap of how to have a profitable product business. So I really go into all the things you need to make sure that you are a profitable product business as well.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that those links that you provided, I will put in the show notes so people can easily find you. And thank you again for being a guest. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much, Monica.